Hello, everyone. My name is Danny. This review is for the movie called Bad Times at the El Royale. Jeff Bridges, Cynthia Erivo, Dakota Johnson, John Hamm, and Chris Hemsworth lead an all-star cast in this powerful thriller filled with gripping suspense and startling revelations. Seven strangers, each with a secret to bury, meet at Lake Tahoe's El Royale, a rundown hotel with a dark past. Over the course of one fateful night, everyone will have a last shot at redemption before everything goes to hell. This is a 2018 film. It is rated R, and it runs 2 hours and 20 minutes. It's kind of long. Bad Times at the El Royale. Well, I think people could use about 30 minutes to review this movie. I'm going to try and do it less than that. There's a lot to unravel, a lot to unpack with this kind of a movie. It has many different ways that it goes. There's many different ways that it could be better. It could be a lot worse, but it's a thriller, so it's interesting. Um, it's just hard to review everything that is packaged in this movie within the usual movie reviewer allotment of time. So we'll start with the acting being phenomenal. I'll say that much. It's phenomenal. Like they're able to kind of be themselves, but they have great characters, so they can kind of be fluid with it. And so it's just, I think this is the kind of movie that people want to do because they can be themselves and they can elaborate, their point of view of how things are supposed to be interacted with. The one thing I would say, like the worst person in the movie, I think would probably be Chris Hemsworth, because when we are introduced to him, he's a free loving cult leader, and then as we get further into the movie, he kind of turns into mob boss. It's like, I don't know if that's the interpretation that the people running the movie wanted from him. And I think he could have kept his persona of cult leader and still pulled off the last scene. So that's about my interpretation of acting wise. Um, Camera work, storyline, all those things are great. I think that I always have a problem with movies that do this, where they have something at the beginning to kind of set up the movie, and then they have the movie, whether it be, a year before, timeline wise, as the first scene, or 10 years later, or whatever. I always have a problem with people going back and forth and back and forth. And this one goes back and forth, but it makes sense. And if you haven't seen the movie, I won't explain that part because I want it to be fresh for you. But it goes back and forth and it makes sense. And I just think that it, does it well. So I wouldn't say anything is bad with this movie about the what it does with the scenes, but I think any movie that does what this movie does, it could be better by just telling the story straight through. I don't know why movies are afraid to do that, but sometimes it makes sense, and sometimes it's a little bit exciting to do it this way. Okay, I'm gonna spend just the last little part here to talk about things that just don't make sense. When you're doing a movie like this, or The Hateful Eight, or any other movie that is kind of a thriller like this that isn't action the whole time, it's a lot of talking, it's a lot of setting up things, it's a lot of you waiting until something happens, and then if you blink you miss it. If you're going to get a drink at the sink or doing something or talking to somebody, and you turn your head or you close your eyes for a second, you missed what happened. So that's the kind of thriller that this is. And with that comes very extended scenes of people talking in one room. And you got to be careful with that because people can call it boring. People can call it, prolonged, silence and non-action. And there's a lot of that, but I think it has enough action along the way where it keeps us interested. And like I said, when you have that element in your movie where anything can happen at the snap of the fingers, it makes it pretty tense. So I can't lie and say that I didn't want more action, but I'm satisfied with how much we got. I was very shocked by a couple things, didn't see them coming, and that's always good. And there were some things that were a little bit more violent or a little bit more surprising than I thought they would be, and that's good. Then, okay, so to summarize what I've said in the last 6 minutes, is that this movie is very good. It's very suspenseful. It's very great acting, great storyline, very original idea. Everything about it is great, right? So for 2 hours, it's great. Then it starts to like tease you that it's going to be an awful ending. And I just don't know exactly what to say about the ending, but the last, let's say, half an hour, when Chris Hemsworth introduces himself, is just it's just off. I mean, the point of this movie, it doesn't even say it in the summary, but the point of this movie is this bag of money, Jeff Bridges' character, and his relevance to the movie. Okay? They kind of lose sight of that towards the end. It kind of gets to be too much about Chris Hemsworth. And like I said, he turns into this like mob boss character, and I just don't care for it. I just don't appreciate movies losing their sight. And when you have so much going on and you have so many directions to connect, we have romantic movies like this where you have like four characters and their stories combine: Mother's Day, Valentine's Day, New Year's Eve. Then you have movies like this, The Hateful Eight and Bad Times at the El Royale, where people are coming together and you need to connect every single dot. There's this character, Miles. He only has limited things to say near the end. It gets a little annoying. And the first character that kind of has a problem or has a surprise for the audience, we don't really get any comeback on him because there are consequences for him having a problem. And we're just going to end the movie without recognizing that. So I just got to summarize by saying that the ending is disappointing. And I think it was okay for what is in the moment. Like when you're watching it, it feels like, okay, that can be the end. They move off, they go there, they do that. I'm not going to give away anything, but for them to do this and go off and do that is just like, oh, that's all to this big 2 hour, 20 minute, film, and you're embraced in it and all this stuff. And one of the characters at the end, she literally has no secret to bury that everybody else has. Like, she could have not been in this film, it would have been fine, but it wants to have her in it for her to be singing, and it wastes like 20 minutes of our time in this movie hearing her sing. And I just don't see the point of focusing on her so much when she wasn't really that relevant to the whole complete storyline and focus of Jeff Bridges' character. So, I think this is a good movie. I do totally think everybody needs to see it. It's a good thriller. It does prolong scenes and everything, but that doesn't make it bad at all. And it's interesting the whole time. So I'm going to give Bad Times at the El Royale a B. I wouldn't mind seeing it again someday. I just don't like being disappointed at the end of films. It's a real harsh word for me to use. And it just has a weird feeling. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth for days when I see a movie like this. And it could have been better, it could have been more interesting, and it could have really done something at the end. And then it just kind of lets itself off the hook by having two people run away and be happy ever after. And I'm like, what? So that's my review of Bad Times at the El Royale. I'll give a B to it. Thanks a lot, guys. My name's Danny. If you like this or any of my other videos, try and give some of them a watch. Like and subscribe to my channel if you would. And enjoy movies. Thanks a lot.